A night that changed everything. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the laughter of New York's elite. Natalie Brooks stood near the refreshment table, clutching her press badge like a lifeline. She had never felt more out of place in her life. At 23, Natalie was living her dream as a junior journalist for a local Manhattan magazine. But tonight she was covering the biggest charity gala of the season. Her navy blue dress, borrowed from her roommate Rebecca, felt too tight, and her heels pinched with every step. Around her, women draped in designer gowns and men in $1,000 suits chatted effortlessly about their vacation homes in the Hamptons. "Just get some quotes and photos, then you can leave," Natalie whispered to herself, reaching for a cup of coffee from the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the delicate china cup. That was when it happened. A tall figure moved quickly past her, and Natalie turned at the exact wrong moment. Hot coffee splashed across the front of an immaculate white shirt and charcoal suit jacket. Time seemed to freeze. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry," Natalie gasped, her face burning with embarrassment. She grabbed napkins from the table, her hands shaking as she tried to dab at the stain. "I did not see you. I am so incredibly sorry." The man looked down at his ruined shirt, and for a terrifying moment, Natalie thought he might explode with anger. Instead, when he lifted his gaze to meet hers, she found herself staring into the warmest brown eyes she had ever seen. The man behind the suit. "It is all right," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "These things happen." Natalie finally looked at his face properly and felt her stomach drop. She recognized him from magazine covers and business news segments. James Donovan, founder and CEO of Donovan Industries, one of the youngest billionaires in America. And she had just dumped coffee all over him. "Please, let me pay for the dry cleaning," Natalie stammered, knowing her entire paycheck probably would not cover replacing his suit. "I feel terrible." James smiled, and it transformed his entire face. He had strong features, with threads of silver running through his dark hair that somehow made him more distinguished. "I have a spare shirt in my car. Really, do not worry about it." He began walking toward the exit, and without thinking, Natalie followed him, still apologizing. "I'm so clumsy sometimes. My roommate always says I should not be trusted around hot beverages." James glanced back at her, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Are you following me to make sure I actually have a spare shirt?" "No. I mean, yes. I just feel so bad," Natalie said, realizing how odd she must look trailing after him through the Grand Hotel. "And I am supposed to be working. I am covering this event for Manhattan Weekly." "A journalist," James said, stopping near the coat check. "That explains the notebook peeking out of your purse." Natalie unconsciously touched her bag where her worn leather notebook always stayed. "I love writing. It is the only thing I have ever wanted to do." Something shifted in James's expression. "The only thing? That is rare. Most people do not know what they truly want." An unexpected conversation. While James retrieved his spare shirt from his driver, Natalie waited in the lobby, wondering if she should just run back to the ballroom. But curiosity kept her rooted to the spot. When he returned, wearing a fresh white shirt that somehow looked even better than the first, he surprised her by suggesting they talk. "I have about 15 minutes before I need to give my speech," James said, gesturing toward a quiet corner with plush armchairs. "Tell me about your writing." Natalie sat down, confused but intrigued. "Why would you want to hear about that?" "Because you're the first honest person I have met all night," James replied, settling into the chair across from her. "Everyone else wants something from me. You just wanted to apologize for spilling coffee." So Natalie told him. She talked about growing up in a small Ohio town where the biggest news was the annual county fair. She described how she saved every penny from waitressing to move to New York after college, how she shared a tiny apartment in Queens with Rebecca, and how she dreamed of writing stories that mattered. James listened with an intensity that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. When she finally paused, embarrassed by how much she had revealed, he leaned forward. "You remind me of myself 20 years ago," he said quietly. "Before the money, before all of this, I had the same hunger in my eyes." "What changed?" Natalie asked before she could stop herself. James's expression clouded. Success has a price. I gained everything and lost what mattered most. Before Natalie could ask what he meant, an assistant approached to remind James of his speech. He stood, adjusting his cufflinks, then pulled out a business card and handed it to her. If you're serious about journalism, I know people at the New York Times, James said. Send me your best work. I would like to help. Natalie stared at the card, stunned. Why would you do that for me? James smiled that transforming smile again. Because I see something in you. Talent, yes, but more than that. Authenticity, that is rarer than you know. The seed of something new. As Natalie watched James walk back toward the ballroom, she felt her world tilt slightly on its axis. She looked down at the business card in her hand, embossed with elegant lettering. Her rational mind told her this was just a kind gesture from a wealthy man who felt sorry for the clumsy girl who ruined his shirt. But something deeper whispered that tonight had been the beginning of something she could not yet name. Back at her apartment later that night, Natalie told Rebecca everything while they ate cheap Chinese takeout on their secondhand couch. Wait, the James Donovan? Rebecca shrieked. The guy who was on the cover of Fortune magazine last month? And he gave you his personal card. It probably does not mean anything, Natalie said, though her fingers kept tracing the embossed letters on the card. Nat, guys like that do not give out their personal information unless they want to see you again, Rebecca insisted. Are you going to email him? Natalie thought about those warm brown eyes, about how he had listened to her rambling about her dreams without once checking his phone or looking bored. She thought about his words. I see something in you. Maybe, she said softly. Maybe I will. That night, lying in her narrow bed in her cramped room, Natalie stared at the ceiling and wondered if fate had deliberately made her spill that coffee. She had always believed that some meetings were meant to happen, that the universe sometimes pushed people together for reasons beyond understanding. As sleep finally claimed her, Natalie dreamed of brown eyes and warm smiles, of a world where a small-town girl and a billionaire could somehow find common ground. She did not know yet that this accidental meeting would change not just her career, but her entire life. The city that never sleeps hummed outside her window, full of infinite possibilities. And for the first time since moving to New York, Natalie felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The first email. 3 days passed before Natalie found the courage to email James. She rewrote the message 17 times, deleting words that sounded too eager, adding phrases that seemed more professional, then deleting those too. Finally, Rebecca grabbed her laptop. Just be yourself, her roommate insisted. That is what he liked about you in the first place. So Natalie wrote a simple message thanking him for his kindness and attaching 3 of her best articles. She hit send before she could overthink it, then spent the next 2 hours convinced she had made a terrible mistake. James replied within 30 minutes. Your writing has soul, his email read. Most journalism today feels manufactured, but yours feels real. I forwarded your work to Mr. Harrison at the New York Times. He owes me a favor. Lunch next week? I would like to hear more about your goals. Natalie read the message 5 times, her heart racing. Mr. Harrison was the senior editor everyone at her magazine talked about with reverence. And James wanted to have lunch with her. This is insane, she whispered to herself. This does not happen to girls like me. But apparently, it did, learning his world. Their first lunch was at a quiet Italian restaurant in Midtown. Natalie arrived 15 minutes early, her stomach a knot of nerves. She had borrowed Rebecca's best blazer and spent an hour on her makeup, trying to look sophisticated. James arrived exactly on time, looking effortlessly elegant in a navy suit. But when he smiled at her, all her nervousness melted away. I'm glad you emailed, he said as they sat down. I was worried I'd scared you off. Scared me. Natalie laughed. I thought I was bothering you. I am sure billionaires have better things to do than mentor junior journalists. Former billionaire, James corrected with a wry smile. I stepped down as CEO last month. My business partner Tom Richards runs daily operations now. I am just an investor and advisor. Over pasta and wine that probably cost more than Natalie's rent, James told her about his life. He had grown up in Detroit, the son of an auto worker. When the factory closed, his family lost everything. James had worked 3 jobs to put himself through community college, then earned a scholarship to MIT. I built Donovan Industries because I never wanted to feel powerless again, he explained, his fingers tracing patterns on the white tablecloth. Money was security. Success was armor. Was? Natalie asked softly. James met her eyes. 10 years ago, I married a woman named Catherine Wells. She was beautiful, sophisticated, everything I thought I wanted. I worked 90-hour weeks building the company. I thought I was building our future. He paused, pain flickering across his features. She was having an affair with my attorney for 2 years before I found out. The divorce was brutal. She got a huge settlement, but that was not what hurt. What hurt was realizing I had been so focused on success that I had never actually built a real relationship. Natalie reached across the table and touched his hand gently. That must have been devastating. It was, James admitted. I spent the next decade avoiding any real connection. I dated occasionally, but never let anyone get close. Until I met a clumsy journalist who spilled coffee on me and reminded me what authenticity looked like. Their eyes locked, and something electric passed between them. Natalie pulled her hand back, suddenly aware of the age difference, the gap in their worlds. She was 23 and he was 45. This cannot be what it felt like. When 2 worlds collide. The weeks that followed established a pattern. James and Natalie met for lunch every Thursday. He introduced her to his sister Patricia, a warm woman who ran a nonprofit for underprivileged children. Patricia immediately liked Natalie, pulling her aside at a gallery opening to say, "You are good for him." I have not seen James this happy in years. But not everyone approved. Tom Richards, James's business partner, made his concerns clear during a tense dinner. "She is half your age, James," Tom said bluntly while Natalie was in the restroom. "What are you thinking? The press will have a field day." "I am thinking that she makes me feel alive again," James replied firmly. "I am thinking that age is just a number when 2 people connect on a deeper level." Natalie heard the tail end of the conversation as she returned. The rest of dinner was awkward, and she could see the worry in Tom's eyes every time he looked at her. At her own job, reactions were mixed. Her colleague Amy Chun was supportive but cautious. "Just be careful," Amy warned over coffee in the break room. "Rich men have a way of making promises they do not keep." "We are just friends," Natalie insisted, though even she was not sure that was true anymore. The turning point came on a chilly October evening. James had invited Natalie to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. The city sparkled around them, and the autumn air carried the scent of roasting chestnuts from nearby vendors. "I need to be honest with you," James said as they paused midway across the bridge. The Manhattan skyline glowed behind them. "These past 2 months, seeing you, talking to you, it has changed me. I know this is complicated. I know people will judge us. But Natalie, I cannot stop thinking about you." Natalie's breath caught. She had been fighting her own growing feelings, telling herself it was gratitude or admiration or anything except what it really was. "James, I feel it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared. What if this ruins everything? What if I'm just some phase for you, a way to feel young again?" "You are not a phase," James said intensely, taking both her hands in his. "You're the most real thing in my life. Yes, we're different ages. Yes, we come from different worlds. But when I am with you, none of that matters. I see you, Natalie Brooks, the real you, and I am falling in love with that person." Tears pricked Natalie's eyes. "I'm falling for you too. That terrifies me." James cupped her face gently. "Can I kiss you?" Natalie nodded, and when his lips met hers, it felt like coming home. The kiss was tender and passionate, sweet and intense all at once. Around them, the city continued its eternal rhythm. But in that moment, they were the only 2 people in the world. The price of love. The next morning, Natalie woke to 17 missed calls. A photographer had captured their kiss on the bridge, and the photo was everywhere. "Billionaire's young lover," screamed one headline. "Tech titan cradle robbing," asked another. Natalie's phone would not stop ringing. Her editor wanted a statement. Her mother in Ohio was worried. Rebecca hovered anxiously while Natalie sat on their couch, scrolling through increasingly nasty comments online. gold digger. He is old enough to be her father. She is using him for his money. Midlife crisis in human form. Each comment felt like a slap. Natalie had always valued her privacy, her integrity. Now strangers were making assumptions about her character based on one photograph. James called an hour later. "I am so sorry," he said, his voice tight with guilt. "I should have been more careful. I know this is not what you signed up for. Maybe we should take a break," Natalie heard herself say, even as her heart broke. "Let things cool down. Is that what you want?" James asked quietly. Natalie thought about the comments, about Tom's disapproval, about her mother's worried voice on the phone. She thought about her career and her reputation and all the practical reasons why this relationship was impossible. But then she thought about Thursday lunches and genuine laughter. She thought about how James listened to her dreams like they mattered. She thought about that kiss on the bridge and how right it had felt. "No," she said firmly. "That is not what I want. I want you. I want us. I just need to know you are in this for real, not just until the novelty wears off." "Natalie, I am 45 years old," James said. "I have had novelty. I have had excitement. I have had women who wanted my money and my status. What I have never had, not really, is someone who sees past all that. Someone who likes me for the man I am when all the trappings are stripped away. That is you. That has only ever been you." Natalie wiped tears from her cheeks. "Then we face this together." "Together," James agreed. "Let them talk. Let them judge. We know the truth." Over the following weeks, the media frenzy intensified before gradually dying down. Natalie refused to give interviews, focusing instead on her work. Mr. Harrison at the Times had indeed given her a chance, assigning her a feature story about immigrant communities in Queens. She threw herself into the work, spending long days interviewing families, documenting their struggles and triumphs. The resulting article was powerful and moving. When it was published, it got more attention than any scandal photo ever could. "This is brilliant journalism," Mr. Harrison told her, calling her into his office. "This is the kind of writing that changes minds. I would like to offer you a staff position." Natalie floated home that evening, bursting to share the news. She met James at his penthouse apartment for the first time. The space was beautiful, but somehow sterile, like a magazine spread rather than a home. "You did this on your own merit," James said, pulling her into a hug after she told him about the job offer. "No connections, no favors, just your talent. Thank you for believing in me," Natalie whispered against his chest. "Thank you for teaching me how to feel again," James replied, tilting her chin up to kiss her softly. That night, as they sat on his balcony watching the city lights, Natalie realized something profound. Love was not about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone whose imperfections fit with yours, whose past made them treasure the present, whose wounds taught them how to be gentle with yours. James was not perfect. He could be controlling sometimes, too used to making executive decisions that he struggled with vulnerability and often defaulted to try to fix things with money. But he was learning. He was trying. And he loved her with a fierce devotion that made her feel cherished in ways she had never experienced. As autumn turned to winter, their relationship deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, navigated their differences, built something real and lasting. The world might not understand them, but they understood each other. And sometimes that was enough. Meeting the family. December arrived with the first snowfall of the season, transforming New York into a winter wonderland. Natalie had been dreading this moment for weeks. Her mother, Helen Brooks, was coming to visit, and she wanted to meet James. What if she hates him? Natalie fretted to Rebecca while cleaning their apartment frantically. What if she thinks I've lost my mind? "Your mom loves you," Rebecca reminded her. "She will see how happy you are." Helen Brooks arrived on a Friday afternoon, her practical winter coat dusted with snow. She hugged Natalie tightly, then held her at arm's length, studying her face. "You look different," Helen said. "Older somehow. More settled. Is that good or bad?" Natalie asked nervously. Her mother smiled. "It is good, honey. You look happy." The dinner with James was scheduled for Saturday evening at a cozy French restaurant. Natalie changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple green dress. When they arrived, James was already there, looking distinguished but approachable in a sweater and slacks. He stood when Helen approached, extending his hand. "Mrs. Brooks, it is an honor to meet you. Natalie talks about you all the time." Helen shook his hand, her expression neutral. "Mr. Donovan, I have heard a lot about you too." The dinner started awkwardly. Helen asked polite questions about James's business. He asked about her life in Ohio. Natalie sat between them, tension knotting her shoulders. Then Helen said, "You are older than me by 3 years." The statement hung in the air. James met her eyes steadily. "Yes, Mum, my daughter is 23 years old. She has her whole life ahead of her." "I know that," James said quietly. "I think about it every day. The age difference, the different stages of our lives, I am aware of all of it." "Then why pursue this relationship?" Helen asked bluntly. "Why not let her be with someone her own age, someone who can grow with her?" Natalie opened her mouth to defend James, but he touched her hand gently, signaling he wanted to answer himself. "Because I love her," James said simply. "Not in spite of her youth, but inclusive of everything she is. I love her passion for justice, her terrible jokes, the way she cries at animal shelter commercials. I love that she challenges me, that she does not let me hide behind my success or my past pain." He paused, his voice growing stronger. "I cannot promise I'm the perfect partner for your daughter. I have baggage. I have made mistakes. But I can promise I will spend every day trying to deserve her. I will support her dreams, celebrate her victories, and stand beside her through her struggles. And I will never, ever take her for granted." Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, her eyes filled with tears. Her father died when Natalie was 10. Lung cancer. He was a good man who worked himself to death, trying to provide for us. "I am so sorry," James said softly. "Before he died, he made me promise something," Helen continued. "He said, 'Helen, when our girl falls in love, do not judge the man by his age or his bank account. Judge him by how he treats her, by whether he sees her value.' So that is what I am doing, Mr. Donovan. I am watching how you look at my daughter." "And?" James asked. Helen smiled through her tears. "You look at her like she hung the moon. That is all a mother can ask for." Natalie burst into tears, and suddenly all three of them were crying and laughing at the same time. The rest of dinner was warm and genuine, with Helen sharing embarrassing childhood stories and James listening with delighted attention. As they said goodbye outside the restaurant, Helen hugged James. "Take care, my girl," she whispered. "With my life," James promised. The storm before peace. January brought a new challenge. Catherine Wells, James's ex-wife, reappeared after years of silence. She had seen the photos of James and Natalie, and she was not happy. "She is suing you for more money," Tom Richards told James during an emergency meeting. "She claims you hid assets during the divorce. It is nonsense, but it will be messy." What made it worse was Catherine's media campaign. She gave interviews portraying herself as the victim, claiming James had a pattern of using young women and discarding them. She hinted that Natalie was just the latest in a long line. "None of this is true," James told Natalie, his face pale with anger. "She is lying because she wants more money, and she knows attacking you will hurt me most." Natalie believed him, but the constant media attacks wore her down. Reporters camped outside her apartment. Her new colleagues at the Times looked at her with pity or suspicion. Even Mr. Harrison called her in for a conversation. "I'm not asking about your personal life," he said carefully, "but I need to know this will not interfere with your work." "It will not," Natalie said firmly, though inside she felt herself fracturing. The breaking point came when Catherine arranged an accidental meeting at a charity event both Natalie and James were attending. Catherine swept in wearing a designer gown, looking beautiful and poised. "So you are the latest project," Catherine said, approaching Natalie with a sharp smile. "Let me give you some advice, dear. James loves to play savior to struggling young women. It makes him feel powerful. But once you stop being grateful, once you start having your own opinions, he'll move on." "That is not true," Natalie said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Is it not? I was 25 when we met. I was a struggling artist. He loved how I looked up to him, how impressed I was by his success. But the moment I wanted my own career, my own life separate from his, everything fell apart. Catherine leaned in closer. He does not want an equal partner, sweetheart. He wants someone to rescue. Once you realize that, you will understand why this will never work. James appeared then, his face dark with anger. Stay away from her, Catherine. Or what? Catherine laughed. I'm just having a friendly conversation with your girlfriend. Unless you are afraid of what I might tell her. The confrontation made headlines, of course. More photos, more speculation, more strangers weighing in on their relationship. Natalie felt like she was drowning. That night, she and James had their first real fight. Maybe Catherine is right, Natalie said, pacing his living room. Maybe I'm just a project to you. Someone to save, to fix, to mold. That is ridiculous. James snapped, his own frustration boiling over. I love you for who you are, not who I can make you. Do you? Because sometimes I wonder if you even see me as an equal. You're always trying to help, always swooping in to fix things. Do you know how that feels? Like I'm a child who cannot handle my own life. I'm trying to support you. James shouted. Is that a crime? Wanted to make your life easier. I do not need easy, Natalie shouted back. I need a partner, not a benefactor. The silence after their words was deafening. They stood on opposite sides of the room, both breathing hard, both hurting. Finally, James spoke, his voice raw. You are right. I have been trying to control things, to protect you from the fallout of being with me. But that is not fair to you. You are strong enough to fight your own battles. Natalie wiped tears from her cheeks. I am scared, James. Scared that Catherine is right, that once I stop being this grateful young woman, you will realize you do not want me anymore. James crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. Listen to me. Catherine is bitter and manipulative. Yes, I have control issues. Yes, I sometimes try to solve problems with money because that is what I know. But I am learning. Because of you, I am learning to be vulnerable, to let someone in, to build something equal. I need you to see me as your equal, Natalie whispered against his chest. Not younger, not someone to mentor, but as your partner. You are my partner, James said fiercely. You are my equal in every way that matters. You challenge me. You inspire me. You make me want to be better. I am sorry I made you doubt that. They held each other while the city lights twinkled outside. 2 imperfect people trying to build something perfect between them. Triumph and forever. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms in Central Park and new possibilities blooming. Natalie's series on immigrant communities won the Pulitzer Prize for feature writing. At 23, she was one of the youngest recipients ever. The award ceremony was overwhelming. Natalie wore a simple black dress, her hands shaking as she accepted the medal. As she gave her speech, she saw James in the audience, tears streaming down his face with pride. This award belongs to the families who trusted me with their stories, Natalie said into the microphone. And to everyone who believed I could do this, even when I did not believe in myself. After the ceremony, James swept her into his arms. I'm so proud of you. You did this on your own merit, with your talent and your heart. I could not have done it without your support, Natalie admitted. No, James said firmly. I supported you, but you did the work. You wrote the words. You told the stories. This is yours, Natalie. All yours. That night, James took her back to the Plaza Hotel, to the very ballroom where they had first met. He had arranged for it to be empty except for them, the space lit by thousands of candles. What is this? Natalie asked, confused. James took her hand, leading her to the spot where she had spilled coffee on him exactly 1 year before. This is where my life changed, where a clumsy, beautiful woman bumped into me and reminded me what it meant to truly live. He dropped to one knee, and Natalie's heart stopped. Natalie Brooks, you have taught me that love is not about age or money or status. It is about 2 souls recognizing each other. You have challenged me, changed me, made me want to be the man you see when you look at me. He pulled out a ring, simple and elegant. I know we come from different worlds. I know people will always question us, but I do not care about any of that. I care about building a life with you. Will you marry me? Natalie was crying so hard she could barely speak. Yes, she finally gasped. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. James slipped the ring on her finger and stood, kissing her deeply while candles flickered around them like stars. 6 months later, the wedding was small and intimate, held in a garden in Ohio, surrounded by family and close friends. Helen walked Natalie down the aisle. Patricia stood as James's best woman. Rebecca was the maid of honor, crying happy tears throughout the ceremony. As Natalie and James exchanged vows, promising to love each other through whatever came, Natalie thought about the journey that had brought them here. The spilled coffee, the first lunch, the media storms, the doubts and fears and triumphs. Love had not been easy. It had been complicated and messy and sometimes painful, but it had also been the most real, most beautiful thing in her life. James had stepped fully back from Donovan Industries, focusing now on philanthropic work and writing a book about ethical business practices. Natalie continued her journalism, telling stories that mattered, giving voice to the voiceless. They bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, filling it with books and art and laughter. On weekends, they cooked together, explored the city, built a life that was entirely their own. Sometimes reporters still asked about their age difference. Natalie would smile and say, "Love does not follow a timeline or a formula. It just is." And James would add, "The best things in life are worth waiting for, even if it takes 45 years to find them." On their first anniversary, sitting on the Brooklyn Bridge where they had first kissed, Natalie reflected on everything they had overcome. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked James. "Choosing me, despite all the complications?" James took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Not for a single moment. You're the best decision I ever made." Natalie leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the sun set over Manhattan. She thought about the girl who had spilled coffee a year ago, nervous and uncertain. That girl had been brave enough to take a chance on something impossible. And in doing so, she had found something miraculous. Love, real love, did not care about age or money or what the world thought. It only cared about two hearts beating in sync, two souls choosing each other day after day. As the city lights began to twinkle around them, Natalie smiled. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real.